in this case of the Adobe Presenter, what actually needs to be done is not only download the fix presented by Adobe and installing it, you also need to recompile your entire Flash movies. Because Adobe Presenters actually creates Flash movies, and all the Flash movies created by Adobe Presenter were vulnerable to these attacks, and this means that you actually need to recompile your entire Flash applications and deploy it on your web applications. Okay.
Okay, we can go.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about testing Flash applications. Just say a few words about it. So the first thing you need to do when testing Flash applications is to identify those global Flash variables we've talked about. And there are actually several methods that are stated here on how you can do it, and we'll gladly discuss it. But because we are actually running out of time, we actually just say a few words. We want to discover these global Flash parameters. We want to discover where they are being used inside dangerous native functions, and we want to actually link the entire sequence of actions that the user has to do in the Flash in order to get to that vulnerable code. Meaning if the user has to click several buttons or navigate between several frames, we actually want to remember the sequence leading to that vulnerable code. We then want to inject the values to these global parameters, and then we want to navigate to the location of the vulnerable code and actually test to see if the code was executed, for example, if the JavaScript code was executed, or if a malicious Flash file was loaded, or if the code flow was changed. But what we do want you to remember about testing Flash applications is that you actually have to test Flash applications within the original HTML environment and not just test the Flash as a standalone file. That is because of this of the Flash parameter injection, that sometimes the Flash will behave differently if it is not if it is accessed directly, not inside the original HTML environment, and you will miss some vulnerabilities in your Flash movie if you will test it as a standalone Flash movie. Yeah.
Since Flash movies are compiled intermediary code, is there a better solution to decompile the code and then just test it from there? That way, it can do all possible use cases for it?
So you're talking about looking at the code itself, yeah, and try to understand that. Yeah. So there are two techniques, general techniques, into identifying issues. One by executing the code, and one by looking at that and maybe doing both of them. Or I don't know. And you can do both. And what is important is that you will eventually have to understand all of the stuff that we talked about here. So you have to be able to know whether a mutation of the global variable will be able to access a potentially dangerous method. So any technique is good for that.
More question? Yeah.
I use IBM's tool AppScan, and I wonder if you're familiar with whether or not AppScan does check for this.
So presentations in Owasp are vendor free, so we rather not talk about products. If you want, you can come to us later and we'll be happy to discuss. Sorry. Yeah.
Not talking from any vendor, are there some code review products that work to scan Flash files?
So about specific products, come to us. We'll be happy to help you with this. We really try in Owasp to keep the lectures vendor free and not do any marketing or anything in the lectures. Okay.
So your answer is yes. There are some products.
Come to me and we'll talk about it. I'm trying to be really decent. So any questions? Any more?
Now, can a Flash movie has access to a local workstation, right? What's the trust between a Flash movie in the browser and your file system, for example?
So generally speaking, Flash movie code will not be able to access your local files, for example, unless you specifically permit that. So you're safe from that. What it will be able to access is it will be able to send and receive requests out of the domain that it is hosted on. So for example, if there are some sensitive information in one host and that host contained a vulnerable flash file, an attacker could inject pieces of code to that vulnerable flash file either by cross-site flashing or cross-site scripting through Flash, and this malicious code will be able to interact with the sensitive website, and if it's a bank site, and perform transactions or see recent transactions value and all the stuff that we see all the time over the web.
The second question I had, how capable is ActionScript? Can you do like HTTP requests to a third-party domain, whatever, from the actual Flash?
There are options to do that. There are some restrictions. Generally speaking, if the other domain allows you to do that, you can easily do that using. You need to configure that specifically, and you can also send blind requests. Just send requests everywhere you want, but you won't be able to see the responses of those. This is for security.
Actually, what Adobe did is they made certain ways that you can actually bypass the same origin policy inside Flash movies. So actually Flash is a little bit more, or could be a little bit more vulnerable to the bypassing of the same origin policy than regular JavaScript and HTML.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, how are you? Yeah, so we are doing that. We've been working that for a while, and in the next version of AppScan we are introducing Flash execution techniques. So we both are capable of doing crawling on Flash application as well.